Welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast's Midweek in Gaming special. And what do you know, it's truly been a big week in gaming. I'm integot for episode 68.7 for Wednesday, the 19th of January, 2022. And in this week's show, we'll be discussing the biggest story on everybody's lips. Wow. Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard. Swinny.
I thought the biggest story was Jake Paul or Logan Paul buying fake Pokemon cards.
3.5 billion. I know, million.
Yes.
That he lost.
I just, for some reason, got something on my screen then, so I'm glad you could still hear me finish that sentence.
Yeah,
like some windows pop up and it took over everything. Like, what the hell?
I saw the display. For those watching the video feed, you can see it suddenly pop off in Swinny's display. So again, we're not joined with Mike. Wish him the best. He almost died during the week, so my comments about him dying were ill-timed. Pull through, buddy. Get through ICU. No, he's not in ICU.
He's not in ICU.
All right, well, let's play the song and then jump right into this.
Song.
Shut up! Bigwigs on the radio! Shut up! It's Gaming Focused Audio!
As always, if you want to support the show, jump on bigwigpod.com. You can follow us on all of our links. Like, subscribe, ring that bell, choke that chicken, do all the things you need to do to support us. You just got that image in your head of our fans and the community choking the chicken in support. Man, okay, so we don't normally do this, but we have a mid-week in gaming show because this is insane news.
Yes, so I was lying in bed, being bad, looking at like Reddit on my phone as it's like 1:30 in the morning or something, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to play some Wordle. So I played some Wordle and then I checked Signal, and lo and behold, Mike, the please rest up, Mike. But
yeah, very sick man.
Early in the morning, all hours, he's like, Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard. And I'm like, nah, that's a joke. And then I look it up. I'm like, holy shit. And I did not go to sleep for like another 3 hours after that.
Yeah, look, it was quite similar for me. So, but, probably the one slight difference is, I've been looking after the kids and they haven't been sleeping well at all. And I've like barely done anything other than just look after them, work back and forth. And, finally got them to sleep. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to sleep. And like you, I checked my phone before I went to sleep and I saw these posts and I legit thought it was fake. Like my brain was like, Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard, all the, the graphics of all the, IP they've acquired, just the main IP. I was like, no. Like, I think that was my response. I go, nah, this is fake. I think, isn't that what I said? I go, this is fake, isn't it? And you're like, sending me 100 links to like legitimate sites. I'm like, what?
Has the Xbox wire been hacked?
Yeah. It was insane news. Like absolutely insane news. Like, kind of, what did we say? Like, who could they acquire? Like EA, Activision. I think we almost said like that's kind of off the table. That would be like so insane if they actually did that. And the Mad Lads actually did it.
Yeah, and I went on, a crazy journey of lots and lots of comments across all the different sites and the subreddits and everything. And there was one person that called it, and they're like, "Look, I called it back like 3 months ago." And then it's funny because you go on that thread, and they did call it, but then they went and replied to everyone that doubted them with like, "I fucking called it, like that, the whole thread. And I'm like, you know what? You earned that one. To be able to go that.
Unacceptable. That's a million monkeys typing on a million typewriters. Like, of course, one of the monkeys is going to be right eventually. So, no, I don't know.
That monkey got it right.
That monkey did. All right, so what we're going to do, what we thought would convene a special midweek in gaming potty and just talk about the deal, our reactions to it, thoughts about it. Because I think in and of itself it's going to be so long that if we do it Sunday, the Sunday show is going to go for 3 to 4 hours.
Because we've already got a few things planned for Sunday. Hopefully,
pending.
Yes.
The great man returning. We might need to take a break or something. I don't know what we're going to do. All right. Let's jump into the actual press releases from Microsoft and then also from Xbox. So starting with Microsoft. So Microsoft to acquire Activision Blizzard to bring the joy and community of gaming to everyone across every device. Legendary games, immersive interactive entertainment, and publishing expertise accelerate growth in Microsoft's gaming business across mobile, PC, console, and cloud. Then we have our little interstitial graphic of Xbox and Activision and Blizzard and King, the creators of Candy Crush, with their selection of the biggest IP: Overwatch, Diablo, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush, and StarCraft. Do you think these are the biggest ones? We're going to cover it a little bit further, but
it's quite interesting. There's 4 Blizzard IP out of the 6. But then when you actually look at like the games they have in the pipeline, it makes sense. So we'll get further into the games soon.
Yeah, we'll cover it. So going back to the press statement from Microsoft. So Redmond, Washington, and Santa Monica, California, January 18th, 2022, with 3 billion people actively playing games today and fueled by a new generation steeped in the joys of interactive entertainment, gaming is now the largest and fastest growing form of entertainment. Today, Microsoft Corporation announced plans to acquire Activision Blizzard, a leader in game development and interactive entertainment content publisher. This acquisition will accelerate the growth in Microsoft's gaming business across mobile, PC, console, and cloud, and will provide building blocks for the metaverse. This is the opening paragraph.
Yeah, that's purely for the press release.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Because that's the thing. That's the thing. Then anyway,
we need to bring this up. We need to bring this up in the competition piece. So we'll have a segment a little bit further on. Microsoft will acquire Activision Blizzard for $95 per share in an all-cash transaction valued at $68.7 billion US dollars, which is about 95 billion Australian dollar dues, inclusive of Activision Blizzard's net cash.
I'm going to ask you, sorry to interrupt this, off the top of your head, I guess I could Google it now. Do you happen to know Australia's GDP? Like, how close is that
trillions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Calm down.
No, I'm just like, how, like, because you're saying AUD, I'm like, wait, how close is that?
No, what I was saying this before the show went live, that, we've got 4 big banks in Australia, and they're the key 4 banks. And they, like, with this amount of money, they could acquire the smallest of those big 4 or the third largest of those big 4, which is just insane because they're some of the most profitable companies in Australia.
So 1,370 billion USD.
Yeah.
So obviously more is Australian. So
yeah, inclusive of net cash. When the transaction closes, Microsoft will become the world's 3rd largest gaming company by revenue, behind Tencent and Sony. The planned acquisition includes iconic franchises from Activision, Blizzard, and King Studios like Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, Call of Duty, Candy Crush, in addition to the global esports activities through Major League Gaming. The company has studios around the world with nearly 10,000 employees. So Bobby Kotick will continue to serve as CEO of Activision Blizzard, and he and his team will maintain their focus on driving efforts to further strengthen the company's culture and accelerate business growth. I would imagine this line here has been workshopped like 1,000 times. Once the deal closes, the Activision Blizzard business will report to Phil Spencer, CEO, Microsoft Gaming. Now, I don't know if you could do this on the side, Swinny, but is that the first time they started calling it Microsoft Gaming? That does not seem to resonate with me. I'll also just say quickly that, and some of these quotes are from it, but I, being the huge nerd that I am, I actually listened to the Investor Call webcast with Satya Nadella. Bobby Kotick was on it, and Phil as well. And it was obviously very scripted, but the whole discussion around cultural change, it was so particular what they said. It was sort of like, and we'll cover it a little bit later, but just around, he accepts and, he's leading the cultural change that Activision Blizzard needs, which is quite interesting to me.
So just quickly, this just going off Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And it says Xbox Game Studios, previously known as Microsoft Studios, Microsoft Game Studios, and Microsoft Games, is an American video game publisher and part of Microsoft Gaming division.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's been there for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to the presser, gaming is the most dynamic and exciting category in entertainment across all platforms today and will play a key role in the development of metaverse platforms, said Satya Nadella, chairman and CEO of Microsoft. We're investing deeply in world-class content, community, and the cloud to usher in a new era of gaming that puts players and creators first and makes gaming safe, inclusive and accessible to all.
So that's why you buy Call of Duty.
You know, I should say the other thing that they said a lot on the call was around content creators. So, you know, the deal's all about us, Swinny. Getting back to the presser.
Totally.
Players everywhere love Activision Blizzard games, and we believe the creative teams have their best work in front of them, said Phil Spencer, CEO, Microsoft Gaming. Together, we will build a future where people can play the games they want virtually anywhere they want. For more than 30 years, our incredibly talented teams have created some of the most successful games, said Bobby Kotick, CEO, Activision Blizzard. The combination of Activision's world-class talent and extraordinary franchises with Microsoft's technology, distribution, access to talent, ambitious vision, and shared commitment to gaming and inclusion will help ensure our continued success in an increasingly competitive industry. Mobile is the largest segment in gaming, with nearly 95% of all players globally enjoying games on mobile. Through great teams and great technology, Microsoft and Activision Blizzard will empower players to enjoy the most immersive franchises like Halo and Warcraft virtually anywhere they want. This is like a super interesting statement, but we'll get back to this as well. The games like Candy Crush, Activision Blizzard's mobile business represents a significant presence and opportunity for Microsoft in this fast-growing segment. The acquisition also bolsters Microsoft's Game Pass portfolio with plans to launch Activision Blizzard games into Game Pass, which has reached a new milestone of over 25 million subscribers. With Activision Blizzard's nearly 400 million monthly active players in 190 countries and $3 billion franchises, this acquisition will make Game Pass one of the most compelling and diverse lineups of gaming content in the industry. Upon close, Microsoft will have 30 internal game development studios, along with additional publishing and esports production capabilities. The final paragraph: the transaction is subject to customary closing conditions and completion of regulatory review and Activision Blizzard's shareholder approval. The deal is expected to close in fiscal year 2023, so that is between the 1st of July 2022 and the 30th of June 2023 in terms of calendars, and will be accretive to non-GAAP earnings per share upon close. The transaction has been approved by the boards of directors of both Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. Wow.
So just one thing I didn't know was Phil Spencer has a new title now. So he was not CEO of Microsoft Gaming.
That's
before.
what I thought. Yeah, I thought he was senior vice president or executive vice president. EVP,
executive vice president of gaming or something like along those lines.
That's pretty crazy.
And with this news, they had like a new Microsoft Gaming leadership team. And I'm just reading an article now that it seems like it's potentially because you've got, and we'll talk about it in the structure, Xbox, Bethesda and Activision now, so kind of like, I guess, having that Microsoft branding above all three of them. So we'll get to the structure and leadership a little later. So
yeah, and I'm just like looking at our own structure as well, just thinking about when we can talk about certain things. But
of the show.
Yeah,
I am the CEO of Bigwig. You are the executive vice president of production. And Mike is creative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like that. Creative, what would it be? Chief Creative Officer. He's the CCO. I think that one part of this that people are missing is around the mobile component. It is not a shock to me that the mobile component is mentioned before the Game Pass component. And I think, if you actually go through the revenues of Activision Blizzard, number one, we always say Activision Blizzard. I think it is literally Activision Blizzard King, but you'll find that the majority of the revenue isn't actually from Call of Duty, which is, by the way, the number one console game and all those things. It's actually their mobile division drives the most amount of revenue, which, kind of goes back to that statement around, if you look at gaming as a pie, 95% of it is actually mobile gaming. And, none of it we cover on this show because we don't find it interesting. But, that's the reality of the dollars and cents of it all. So I think that is one of the biggest parts of it. And the fact that they're actually calling out, things like Halo and Warcraft in concert with that sentence around and the paragraph around mobile, that's really fascinating to me.
It is. The thing with King, though, is that unless you're in that space, it's like it's like hidden away almost. Like, you don't hear King making headlines these days. I think the last time I really heard much about King, and this is honestly, I'm very ignorant of mobile games and mobile industry, but was how crazy they were trying to take down anyone that was using the word saga in their game name. So to me, that was the last time, and that was a long time ago. That was the last time I heard them making headlines, but obviously they are a moneymaker. But when I looked up the list of games they actually have made, I only knew one of them, which is obviously Candy Crush and whatever versions of Candy Crush they've done. So,
yeah, look, I'm not very familiar with the mobile space at all, apart from Genshin Impact, and I think that's just because of that Breath of the Wild connection. So we've spoken about it a few times on the show, but outside of that, I feel like I'm pretty clueless around mobile in general. Those MOBAs on mobile, I don't even know what the names of them are, and they're doing more business than Nintendo is doing per year. It's just not my interest or my area. But yeah, it's been a crazy year with acquisition, hasn't it? Already we're not even closed of the first month, and now we're up to what, 60, 70, 80 billion dollars US worth of acquisitions. It's
insane.
This year. Yeah.
And we just mentioned how we are definitely not we're not into the mobile scene. We didn't have a standalone story last week about Take-Two acquiring Zynga, which is, at the time last week, was the biggest deal. And that was, that was only 12.7 billion. And now this comes along and 68.7 billion is just, it is not comparable to anything in the video game space ever.
No, and obviously the big story when we started the show was the ZeniMax acquisition in 2020, where we were just like, wow, are you effing kidding me? And I think, let's be real about it. I think even for me, the ZeniMax IPs resonate a lot more with me than the Activision Blizzard ones do. I've never been into Diablo. I think I'd actually really like Diablo. I've just never really gotten into it. I love StarCraft and the old Warcraft games, but outside of that, I'm actually not the biggest fan of many of the IPs, but that was a $8.1 billion deal compared to this, which is around 70 billion. It's just phenomenal. Look how much more it is.
Oh, it's the kind of money that just seems, it's just ludicrous. And I know that that's obviously there's a lot of money thrown around different things, every year, but in the video game space, you just don't think anything would come close to that. And it's wild. And it's just almost as you said yourself, you couldn't believe it when you heard it. But even then, I don't know if we'd even put the amount in there when we were putting it in our chat. It's just the amount itself is on another level. So,
well, I think we know just instantly. You go, well, World of Warcraft, although on the decline a little bit, getting a lot of competition from Final Fantasy 14 in that space, it's still a massive game. Massive amount of people pay $15 a month to play that game. Call of Duty, holy shit, it's just incredible the franchises that they have, and they're the biggest mobile in our space that we care about, but the biggest gaming publisher outside of the Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft, really. If you're looking, I think if Microsoft said we're going to buy Sony, it would almost be just what, I don't even know if that would happen, to be honest. If they I think that would actually get blocked, but. And they've tried to buy Nintendo in the past, right, as documented in that doco, but I just would never happen. Nintendo's not that company. Like, I can't see that happening. So this is the biggest acquisition. It's crazy. And as I said to you guys last night, to put it in context, it's, this is $68.7 billion. Disney acquired Marvel for $4 billion.
The fraction.
Lucasfilm, $4 billion. It's effing insane. Like, when you think about those two just individually, you add them up and it's like you're not even close to getting to the amount. It's really only the Fox acquisition, and that's interesting because there's so much content on Fox, right? And if you're looking at Disney Plus, they needed to fill that back catalog to compete with Netflix. So I kind of get that they need to pay a huge premium in a way to get that. And we'll cover it when we get to the game segment, but I do question the whole idea of having this back catalog, how valuable it actually is versus new games that are coming out. So was there anything else you wanted to cover in the deal? Like what the deal is and everything? What's the deal?
Look, it'll keep coming up how insane it is. So I think let's talk a little bit about the studios that come as part of this bundle.
Yeah, do you want to run through it?
Yeah, so I've listed now. This isn't all of them, but these are the high-profile ones, are the ones that everyone's going out there listing. But underneath the Activision, I guess, label, you've got Beanox, you've got Demonware. I accidentally put them on the same line. High Moon Studios, and then you've got Infinity Ward, Raven Software, Sledgehammer Games, Toys for Bob, and Treyarch. Now, that's under Activision. Now, obviously, Blizzard is its own massive thing, but they kind of operate in teams. So I didn't go there, it's Team 1, Team 2. But that includes the absorbed Vicarious Vision, or the dissolved Vicarious Vision that went into Blizzard only last year, I think it was, or it was sometime early last year.
It was last year.
And, of course, King, and I have no idea how they're structured.
Nor do we care. Yeah,
so, massive studios, but interestingly, the majority of those Activision ones are working on the first game on our list when we get to the games, which, so they're all very focused on a specific franchise. Spoilers, it's Call of Duty. So
I did see someone, and I'm actually trying to find out why it's called this, but someone, and I won't claim credit for this joke, but someone had Toys for Phil. Like, they'd actually rewritten that, and like without pointing it out, but they just had, here's the list of studios. Yeah, Toys for Phil. And I'm like, what is it actually? Why is it called Toys for Bob? That's actually funny.
I know things I know don't work this way that easily, but I did see someone make a comment. Toys for Bob, there you go. Give them give them Banjo-Kazooie. Make a Banjo-Kazooie. I'm like, you know what? That's actually a good fit. I know it wouldn't work like that, but hey. They would be a good dev for that game. So,
yeah. Look, I'm just trying to look at the structure again. Yeah, everyone is really excited about this. I am probably in the camp of not being very excited about this, right? And
well, we haven't actually talked about our thoughts yet on that. I guess
we're both shocked. That was the emotion, right?
Yeah, but we haven't actually got into whether or not we think it's good or bad. So,
yeah, because it's just like. I know that Microsoft has done an amazing job of PR in the last 2 to 3 years. Like, from going from one of the worst PR jobs with the launch of Xbox One, like maybe that will go down in history as one of the worst launches that I can think of. Like, what else would be worse out of like the major competitors? Surely Xbox One. The comments about, hey, it's always on, here's the price.
Look,
get a 360 if you want,
If you're counting things like Dreamcast or stuff, maybe not. Yeah. But outside of platforms that lasted, like not counting ones that failed, essentially. So,
but I don't think that's as bad as Xbox One. I just don't think they had the same money as Microsoft,
But Dreamcast survived a year and a bit or something, or 2 years?
Yeah, year and a half, 2 years max. But it was like about a year and a half when it was like.
Yeah.
But that was a money thing. Xbox would have died if it had Sega's money. Would have died a lot quicker. But anyway, like the point is, like, from a terrible PR space, they've gotten to an amazing PR space. People love Phil Spencer. He's very presentable. But then I look through what they've done with the studios they have. They've got so many studios already. They've had so many studios for a long time. Like, my beloved studio, like Rare, like what have they done to them? And these other studios they've had and destroyed. Like, I don't know. Like everyone's all so hyped about it. I'm like it's almost like that's just where studios go and don't do good work anymore. Like
like Microsoft has a history of killing studios. It's probably not as bad as EA, but
no, God no.
but yeah, definitely like anything to do with ensemble studios, that. Like I definitely see a studio like in Exile or in Xile, however you say it, which is a studio I do not like, but they're the kind of studio that I would worry about once, let's say Microsoft gets too big. They're already too big. They've been too big for a very long time. It's more like in terms of like amount of studios they own. At some point, those tiny studios or Compulsion Games, the makers of We Happy Few, like they're going to get lost in the shuffle, and it almost makes business sense at some point if they don't deliver on titles that make sense, that they would just be absorbed, like things I'll go into Obsidian or like it's definitely like I think maybe we should share our overall thoughts maybe once we've got through everything, because I'm very torn, but overall I'm very, very cynical of this.
Yeah, I'm super cynical. I'm in Lionhead Studio, like whether you like the people or not, but they even admit themselves they've learned a lot from that experience of where they've taken someone, they know what they're doing and they want to do a certain thing, and then push them in a direction it just didn't make sense and went nowhere. But you look like I actually loved the original Modern Warfare. Like Mike and I, we said it on the show a few times, we were obsessed about that game. Similar to the level of like us playing Halo 3 back in the day. Like absolutely loved it. Every night I wanted to play after work. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, like this is how old I am when I think about it, that it was after work. And then for most people, it's like Modern Warfare is the new reboot. Like it's kind of crazy. But I love that.
Don't give our ages away. Come on.
Well, I started working when I was 12. But like I love that stuff, and there are things that I like from the studios, and I agree, like Toys for Bob, like I haven't gotten around to playing the new Crash, but people all rave about it who love platformers. And you're right, like it would be awesome if they picked the mantle up of Banjo-Kazooie or Conker, like something like that. I think it'd be awesome. And if they could reassemble Vicarious Visions, but I think by that stage it's too late, because it will be when they transfer across, and that's like a year from now ish.
Well,
so
we're talking about games. Should we
let's jump into games. Yeah.
So I'm happy to go through this if you want. So this is kind of like IP, intellectual property, but games. So basically under Activision, of course, Call of Duty that's the headliner. That's the one that is the moneymaker. That is the one that is, in terms of the impact, we'll get to competition soon, and Sony, that is the one that everyone is asking about and talking about. You've got Crash Bandicoot, which we just mentioned, Spyro the Dragon, and Skylanders, which kind of was, stars an offshoot of Spyro. Pretty big hitting IP there. Whether or not they're doing anything Skylanders or not, it's still an IP that is very well known. Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, anything to do with that series. Now we know what's happened to that like rhythm genre and plastic instrument industry, but hey, it's still IP. Some classic games like your Hexen, your Pitfall, your River Raid. Man, I would love someone to make a new River Raid, just like a Geometry War style, like Pac-Man Championship Edition version of that. Cool. Kind of from the 360 era, lots of IP that people have forgotten about, like your Prototype, Geometry Wars. I just mentioned that. Whole bunch of them, including even games like Soldier of Fortune and True Crime. These IP that they're probably never going to do anything with, but it's all under Activision. More classic stuff. I would love them to bring some of this stuff back.
Well, these are Sierra stuff, right?
Sierra stuff like your Space Quest, King's Quest and all that. Phantasmagoria. I've got that in there twice for some reason. And another huge hitting one is Tony Hawk. So,
which has had a very successful revitalization in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. So
it did. Not enough to keep Vicarious Vision as its own entity, but it is what it is. So.
Yeah, but look, this is this is the dynamic difference between Microsoft. Although I'm very worried about this, and we'll cover it in the overall thoughts at the end. But you know, Activision Blizzard is very beholden to, we need to have billion-dollar franchises and have annual, you know, setups. And, you know, the numbers for Tony Hawk Pro Skater would have been perfect for Microsoft Game Pass, right? People would have loved that if that was an exclusive, but it didn't translate into the numbers that Activision Blizzard wants in terms of billion-dollar franchise.
So under the Blizzard umbrella, honestly, this is where a lot of the strongest IPs current day, you know, Diablo, Hearthstone, or it's Hearthstone, isn't it? Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, of course, some classic Blizzard IP that, you know, they put in that Blizzard collection, like your Lost Vikings and Blackthorn and that.
Blackthorn.
And then some massive hitters, Warcraft, obviously, World of Warcraft, of course, and StarCraft. So, and yeah, you look at that, like, I didn't mention it. I originally put it as a dot point here, but like the pipeline, a lot of the pipeline is on the Blizzard side at the moment of the games that are in production, like Diablo 4, Overwatch 2. Whereas obviously Activision, all their pipeline at the moment is really just the next Call of Duty, which is huge, but that is essentially what it is, an ongoing Warzone. And of course King, but I literally only know Candy Crush, so...
Yeah, and when you're looking at the 10,000 employees, a lot of studios are churning out those, like on the Activision side, Call of Duty. Like, that's just the reality.
Yeah.
Like, even like Toys for Bob were like getting on Call of Duty and Sledgehammer and everyone. You know, but I think there's still a lot of games that haven't been announced. And there was a reference to that with Microsoft when they went through to acquire Activision Blizzard. They sort of like literally came out saying, we're very excited about stuff that is in the pipeline that hasn't been publicly discussed. So you could be talking about the StarCraft 3. You could be talking about a brand new Warcraft, like actual Warcraft game. Who knows about World of Warcraft and their response and what they want to do there? You know, they could have like a, you know, a new world or a new realm type of situation in World of Warcraft 2. So,
well, people either don't realize or forget that Elder Scrolls Online is actually a pretty big moneymaker as well.
Yeah, it is.
So they essentially will have two pretty massive, one bigger than the other, but two massive MMOs under their wing with those two. And I was actually just looking at, I know it's been a while, but Activision used to hold the publishing rights to Destiny and all that stuff. Like, it's be wild if that hadn't happened, and then they essentially would have Bungie back onto their wing again. Imagine that. That'd be pretty funny.
In terms of Destiny, but then I was thinking, wait, do they own them as well? It was like Microsoft just owns everyone. Look, I think you're right. Like, even when you go back to stuff like Skylanders, just like one thing randomly, right? Skylanders, you know, relies on having a lot of IP. Like, you know, Microsoft want to push back into the kids segment. That's actually one big thing that Phil Spencer called out late last year is, you know, when they were sort of like, oh, you're done with acquisitions. And he was like, oh, far from. Like, you know, we're not stopping and we need to do more in the child-friendly space. So you look at Crash, Spyro, but I look at Skylanders and I go, probably not the toys to life stuff. I think that's pretty much dead, apart from Amiibo. That will never die. Had to work in the reference to Amiibo somewhere in this chat. But with Skylanders, think about this now. They have access to all of Microsoft's IPs. You could literally have like Doom Guy in Skylanders now, you know, like all these random things. So, and all the Rare catalog, dude. Like, I could really see them, you know, going through systematically, go, oh yeah, we're going to reboot this. Let's get some kind of like Guitar Hero thing happening again. Like, so many of them. I don't think some of the ones like River Raid or Hexen or the Police Quest series.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Any chance I get to mention River Raid, I will mention. That is one of the biggest underrated classic games of all time.
And one thing that we should say is, as well, is, you know, now that they have, you know, 30 plus studios, there's a real human factor to these things where you could have a studio and they go, shit, we are so passionate about an idea of like how to execute, you know, something like a Police Quest or King's Quest or Space Quest or Tony Hawk or whatever, right? Like, that is a real thing that happens as well in these space, you know? Like, if you have a very talented studio within Microsoft, they're like, you know what, can we borrow that IP? We really want to, like, do a game there. That'll be so cool. And, you know, from an Activision and a Blizzard side, and this would be post-deal, by the way, you know, they might look at it and go, well, yeah, we're not doing anything with it. We're working on other things, you know, have at it. And sometimes that's where the best work comes from, right? So that is going to be a massive benefit that Microsoft has, that they just have too much IP that like their studios can keep energized from that perspective.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it was already insane to think about. Look, we know that Xbox in the especially last few years has had barely any games. Like, there's games, but they're very few and far in between.
Not heavy hitters, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, you had the Gears 5, Forza Horizon 5, and it's like, but they're few and far between at the moment. And then it's like, it's all was pipelined with Bethesda now and Ninja Theory and all those studios. Now when you add this and whatever pipeline to that, it almost becomes like, I don't even know how they're, like, I know you've got multiple levels of management and structure in for this stuff, but like, how do you even remember what games are in production if you're someone like Phil Spencer with the amount of stuff going on? It's just insane to me. Like, at some point it's become so massive.
Well,
that, like,
dude, like,
it's
this,
crazy.
You know, this is the thing, and it's like similar to what I do for my work. It's, you know, it gets so high level that it's like magnets on a board, and each magnet is like a whole studio's effort into one game, right? Which is like hundreds, if not 1,000 people it could be up to in some of these AAA or quadruple A, as some idiots are saying now. But, you know, I think what they'll do is exactly what Disney has done with their universes, right? Where they go year by year by year, because, you know, the financial component, as boring as it is, it's super important. Microsoft's a publicly traded company. Now this is becoming a bigger portion of Microsoft. Before, I'd always remind everyone, Xbox is like 2/5 of nothing within Microsoft. It's starting to grow now. It's starting to actually be not a sizable part of their business, but it's starting to be more material, that they need to disclose more and be more mindful from a financial point of view. But they will map it out where it's like, and, you know, imagine the benefit that they have now. Like, I don't know what id's doing, but let's just say they're making like a Doom 3, but I don't think they are, but let's just say they are. Like, they'll have that as a magnet and go, okay, where's that going to line up to the next Halo game, to the next Gears game, to the next Call of Duty game? Like, they can go one quarter. Like, each quarter you're getting like these massive first-person shooter games, which, like, in my view, and we'll come to this in the competition piece, but, you know, like, in summary, I think, yeah, they'll be exclusive. If they're not on the console already, if you can't play them currently, I think they'll be exclusive to the Xbox console. So, fuck, it's like pretty. Like, this is why I just couldn't believe it. Like, we joked about it, like Activision or EA if they bought them, or Take-Two. It's like, imagine if Grand Theft Auto was exclusive. Like, that's kind of wild to think about. But Jesus, man, they've actually done it, man. Like, they've actually done it. So, I mean, what, like, out of all these games, you know, realistically, is there any that jump out at you where you're like, oh shit, that'd be awesome if they did something different there than what Activision Blizzard was pushing in?
Look, I'm not the biggest fan of either Activision or Blizzard IPs. Like, I like Diablo 3, but I'm not a big fan of the series in general. Never been into World of Warcraft and anything like that. But I know that stuff's loved, right? So, but I don't think the Blizzard side of things anything there. For me, it would be, I'd be interested to see what, as you said, like, I would love if they delved into that classic catalogue. You know, I don't think it's going to happen, or at least in the way that I'd want it to, but anything to do with those Sierra games would be awesome. Even a collection or something. I know it would be hard to do on console, but even for PC, like, put them in a collection. I know that stuff you can go out and play for free on, or get it on GOG or whatever, but I just like someone to pay attention to those classic IPs, because that's stuff that I love. That's stuff I grew up playing. But I'd also love to see, honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing another Guitar Hero, like a real Guitar Hero.
I was thinking that as well, yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I think we're due. No, I think it will,
Yeah.
dude. I don't agree. I think it will. I think that is, you know, I could. So the way I look at this is, I go, Microsoft want to push into cloud, mobile, everything. They will want to have deals with a lot of the TV manufacturers to start just having, you know, xCloud embedded into the smart TV like Netflix is, right? I wouldn't even be shocked if they will pay money to Samsung, you know, Sony, which would be interesting, by the way, but park that. But like Samsung, to go, you know, you've got your big button for Netflix. We want a big button for like Xbox, and that will be like Game Pass. And then from there, I could totally imagine they bring back the plastic. They bring back the plastic guitars, because if you take out the console, you're just like completely like skipping steps for people. Where like just general normal people, as much as gaming's massive, it's still not like the majority of people that are doing it. But if you make it so easy for people, it's like, oh, you can have a party, and it's like you bring back those plastics, but you're not having all the extra steps and the nerdy shit that people they couldn't be bothered with, right? And just make it really easy for people. Same as like if they did like with Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, like, you know, those SingStar stuff, but in their space, it's just, I totally see that happening. But one thing I wanted to call out to you is like, and this is the kind of crazy shit that can happen and you can look at is you could actually have like a Tim Schafer Quest game now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Double Fine could actually work on a new King's Quest. That's right.
Now
that's insane.
I've implanted this idea for you.
Yeah, that's what I want. You know, oh no, actually, they would probably do best with Space Quest. Space Quest is the one that the humor would probably fit better with Double Fine. But like even Quest for Glory, like that's a game that could, you know, they could do a remake of that or something like that. Or Zork. I forgot to mention Zork is also under Activision umbrella. So not that I don't think we'll see a Zork, but yeah, it's look. It's just the way it falls that most of these IP aren't my kind of thing. As much as I love RPGs, Diablo is just one of the ones that just doesn't fall into that. But like we'll get to, I guess, I think where the benefits are actually going to lie with this versus the overall potential negative impression this gives me. But I guess maybe let's have a bit of a talk about how it's going to impact Game Pass and everything there.
Yeah, and I mean, do you have a simple headliner from your perspective? Like, I've heard, and I'm sure you're the same as me, you've heard a lot of different opinions about what's going to happen. You know, people are very, like, stuck. You know, like, it will not be exclusive Call of Duty. It's impossible. You're an idiot if you think that.
We're talking about exclusive or Game Pass, because that's the competition is kind of where I was going to talk about.
Okay, I'll park it there. Yeah. Okay, so for Game Pass, well, I think for Game Pass, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen, right? I mean, they've been pretty black and white all the way through.
Yeah, like, but I guess what I was hopefully leading to with this was, do we think that this will actually change their business model with Game Pass in regards to, you know, obviously they've made the deal with EA.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So EA Play, which is like, honestly, if you wait for 3 to 6 months, feels like pretty much all the EA games.
Yeah.
Like,
so they made that deal. It wouldn't surprise me if eventually, well, maybe not now, but it wouldn't have surprised me before this news if they had, because we know Ubisoft are bringing their service to Xbox, and at some point that they potentially even had some deal that wraps that stuff up together.
That would be crazy.
So where I'm going with this is, do we think at some point that they will actually potentially change the way they structure? You know, we've got Game Pass PC, and then you can buy them two together as Game Pass Ultimate, right? And you get other benefits of Ultimate, but like at some point does this, like, do you get additional subscriptions on top of this because of there's a massive amount of back catalogue that Activision could bring into this. Like, it's not just the new games, they have a huge back catalogue.
And they will.
How many Call of Duty games alone
19
that would run, you know?
19 mainline Call of Duty games will be available.
You add that to everything else that Activision has done. Like, at some point, you know, Bethesda, when they added all the Bethesda stuff, it obviously made sense, but Bethesda, you look at the volume, the volume of games it's nothing compared to Activision. So I'm just wondering at what point do they say, look, we have whatever they call it, like a mega ultimate tier or something, like there's another level there. And I'm just wondering at what point does it
like a Nintendo move of like going, here's NSO and here's NSO plus. I think there's like 1% chance of that happening. Like, and even what Phil Spencer said in the investor call is very specific. It's that business idea of a flywheel. Like, how do you get everything working with each other and just like pushing in and reinforcing each other? So it's like the more content they get, the more people go, shit, I want to subscribe to this. And then every additional subscriber they get, it's not like that's costing them money. They just need more subscribers, and it's more money, more money. The more money they get, the more content they can try to get. You know, like it all reinforces each other. I think, like, what will happen with the Game Pass, for sure, you can mark my words on this, it is going to be like double the current price in like 5 years. For sure. Maybe 10 years. But over time, it's going to go up in price. For sure. Like, based on what you can get from it right now, it is way like they are subsidizing it big time, right?
And I guess, like, we know, well, like, I've got it in the next section, but I guess I'll start to bring up Warzone now. Warzone is obviously free to play, all right? And I don't know much beyond that because I've never played Warzone, so I don't know really exactly how they monetize stuff and all that. But just imagine if they have a benefit to, like, basically some way where they tie Warzone into Game Pass that essentially gives you additional benefits to playing Warzone. I'm just thinking the huge player base they have now, like, because it's free to play, you don't have to obviously sign up to Game Pass. And a lot could change before now and whenever, 2023, whenever this does. Who knows what state's Warzone is going to be in then. But I'm just thinking of a strategy to move across the huge install base and player base of that free to play game into Game Pass. Whether or not it's exclusive Battle Pass that you only have access to if you're an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate member or something.
Yeah, I was just quickly trying to see what did they do with Elder Scrolls Online, because from memory, Elder Scrolls Online was free before they acquired it, right?
So it's free, but not the expansions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but I don't think they did anything really crazy there from memory. Like, I don't think they did any... I'm not very into the Elder Scrolls Online community or anything, but from memory, I don't believe they did anything too special with the whole Game Pass stuff. I wouldn't imagine they would do that much, to be honest.
But I'm just thinking, would it not make sense to try to drive some of those people that are only playing Warzone because it's free, first of all, but also it's hugely, insanely popular. Like, why? Anyway, maybe we'll have to wait and see specifically on that one because it's so far away now. But I guess the last thing...
I mean, we can talk about it a little bit later, but... I think if you look at the Battle Pass for Halo Infinite, that still exists, even if you're on Game Pass. So I couldn't imagine they would tinker too much with Warzone. That's generating a stack of cash. But yeah, we'll talk about it in the next segment, whether, like, what's going to happen with that,
Because the last thing I want to mention before we talk about the Sony, the stuff and the exclusivity was, and this is an area that I'm not too familiar with, but I've seen an insane amount of people talking about how this is going to impact the PC space and like the ecosystem of Battle.net and everything to do with that. The fact that their stuff isn't on... I don't know if there is no Activision Blizzard stuff on Steam, but I don't believe their stuff is.
Blizzard stuff. I don't actually. You're right. I don't think they don't. I don't think they have any Call of Duties on Steam either.
Yeah. So because it also it took a while for Call of Duty to join the Battle.net stuff because Blizzard were obviously they're very careful with everything they do with that
stuff.
So, so I'm just wondering, like, I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, because I've seen a lot of people talking about it. It's just an area that I just don't have a lot of familiarity with. So,
like, I'll just say one thing off the bat. Oh no, Call of Duty is on Steam. Yeah, I don't believe the Blizzard games are. I don't remember ever seeing the Blizzard games on there. I might be like saying something really dumb, and actually they are. Diablo's not on there, stuff like that. Call of Duty is on Steam. I always just think of Call of Duty as a console game for some reason. I just never think of it as a PC game. Look, my frustration with Game Pass. I think Game Pass is amazing. It's just the PC experience sucks so hard.
Oh, it's horrible.
Compared to Steam, like, it's embarrassing that the operating system is Microsoft, and then the Game Pass store, like the Xbox app, is horrible compared to Steam. It's not even like close. Like Steam, I've never had an issue installing something and just playing it. Like, that's the way it should be. Whereas,
well, I didn't even list the Game Pass app in this thing because I don't even use it. Like, I
no, but you
literally
do
just
need
use
to
the
use it
Windows
for
store.
some stuff. If you need to use, like, to activate the EA Play stuff, you need to use it. And...
That's the thing. I've never had to use EA.
Yeah, no, but
EA
if you want to
stuff,
use that, that's what you have to do, right? And honestly, it's like a quarter to a third of the time it won't install for me, right? And I'm not doing anything crazy with my system. I'm not like hacking it. Everything's legit. It's just like so buggy. And then I read so much stuff online where people have It's buggy. Like, they really do need to like heavily invest in that space. I think, yeah, like it's fascinating. Like if they're going to start pulling, which they haven't. I mean, the history has been Microsoft's actually adding more stuff on Steam. So I've bought like Halo Master Chief Collection on Steam.
Well, that's where that's where I thought would kind of lead to was, you know, now it will take a while. Obviously, this whole deal will take a while, but
yeah.
Does that mean essentially that all that stuff will move towards Steam? Because, you know, like, it just seems like the way Microsoft's been going with all their stuff recently.
Yeah, I think in the short term, yes. And then it's like in the long term, that's the question. One thing I did want to, now that we're talking about Steam, is this to me makes it even more imperative that they work out a way to get like all of their Game Pass stuff working effectively and xCloud working effectively on the Steam Deck. Because if they could figure out a way to do it, and I mean from a Phil Spencer point of view, to me that's a massive selling point. Like I'd be arguing it's like, hey dude, this is like our competitors to the Switch without needing to build the hardware. That's subsidized. You know what I mean? Like that is a match made in heaven for them if they're able to get an easy way to get all of these games playing well on the Steam Deck. Like, I feel like I haven't heard too many people talk about that, but I feel like that would be such a killer app. If you're getting like the Diablos, Call of Duties, everything running on that, that would be incredible. Like, I'd be like, holy shit, like Xbox is pulling me in, these bastards.
Well, I guess they also have to wait and see how the Steam Deck goes as well.
Yeah,
now,
well,
I'm expecting it, I'm expecting to go well. It's more like it's also an unproven thing, you know, so...
It's an unproven thing. I think what I'd say about the Steam like hardware launches that they've had, it's not like their hardware doesn't work. It just doesn't hit the mark of what the market opportunity is. Like everything they've built and made, it works effectively. I know some people who still use like the PC Steam sort of, you know, connecting thing into the TV where you can play remotely a lot easier, and they love it. Like it's actually really hard to buy those things because they discontinued them. But
Steam Link,
that's what it is. Yeah. Thanks for saving me. But like based on what I've been following, a lot of developers who've got the Steam Deck, and they can't say we like it, we don't like it, but you know when someone's enthusiastic about something and it's so obvious it's good, that's pretty much consistently across the board of the devs who have a Steam Deck like dev unit, how they talk about it. They're just like literally in Twitter, like, oh, this is the only way I want to play our game now, right? And I'm like, this must be a really good piece of tech, and we'll find out soon. It's releasing next month for the lucky people who've got it, which not including Australians. But let's jump into the competition part of it.
Yeah.
So big question that everyone's asking. Very different opinion, which I think is interesting given that we've got the experience with Bethesda now. But are the games going to be exclusive? What is that going to look like? Do you have initial thoughts? I mean, there's so many elements because there's so many games, so much IP, but
there's a lot to consider here, and it's been interesting to see the angle that all the different subreddits and websites take. You know, anytime you see something come up from a Sony or PlayStation subreddit, the angle is very different than something from Microsoft or Xbox.
Yeah.
Look, we've got a few... If we look at history here, we've got a few different examples to look at. You know, first of all, we've got something like Mojang and Minecraft.
Yeah.
That is obviously a platform. There's no Minecraft 2. Like, it's been the game, but obviously it's gotten steady updates for years and years and years on multiple platforms that Microsoft do not own. So we have a previous case of them supporting ongoing on other platforms. Then we've got the Bethesda example where we've seen what's happened when they announced Starfield exclusivity, and we've seen, you know, potentially like whatever they're talking about with Elder Scrolls 6 and future stuff with that. Where I fall with this is I definitely think Warzone will definitely continue, and future versions of Warzone or whatever, to be multi-platform, because that is obviously a live service game. I think even if they move it to a new engine, that will still be considered Warzone. It won't be like a sequel or anything like that. So I definitely think Warzone myself, I think that's safe if you're a PlayStation player. But when it comes to future Call of Duty campaigns, for instance, because I could see realistically at some point, the multiplayer of Call of Duty, like the regular Call of Duty, somehow being merged into the Warzone kind of ecosystem at some point. And
Well,
the
it kind of
campaign
came
stuff,
out of there, though. That's the weird thing about Warzone, right?
yeah. So, but I could see future campaign stuff being exclusive. So like that's where I kind of fall with that, because look, any Activision game from this point onwards could definitely be an Xbox exclusive.
Once the deal's closed.
Yeah, exactly. So nothing that's in production at the moment. And I guess the Blizzard side is very different. So maybe I'll get your thoughts on the Activision stuff now. So,
well, yeah, and like going back to the question about exclusivity, for me, like, because I had a different view from you. I think your view has turned out to be correct, right? My view was like, I think there is an interesting thing and dynamic where it's like you release Starfield on the PS5. Hey guys, in Australia, you have to pay $130 for that. Or if you want to come over to Xbox, it's free as part of Game Pass. Like, that's, to me, really compelling. Like, I look at that and go, well, hang on a second. Game Pass, okay, that's about 10 months of Game Pass, almost a year of Game Pass. And I get Starfield, and then I get all these other games. Versus I'll get it on the PlayStation 5, and that's one game, the only game I can play. But that's not what happened. Like, and you were right. Like, and I would say that I was wrong. Like, they literally just said, this is not on any existing platform. It hasn't been announced for any existing platform. It's going to be console exclusive Xbox. It's going to be on PC and, I guess xCloud and in that sort of Game Pass environment. And that's it. Like, screw you guys, I'm going home kind of territory. To me, that informs everything that they're going to do going forward. And like what they did with Deathloop as well, that's a Microsoft game. Theoretically, they pretty much could have torn up the contract. Those contracts always have exit clauses and stuff like that. But I think they're doing it from that's just bad PR. We're going to look like bullies if we do that. We're going to look like we're throwing our weight around if we tear this contract up. Say Deathloop's a Xbox game only. Hey, you were playing Minecraft, kids, on PlayStation, can't anymore. You won't get updates and you'll fall out of line with your friends. To me, all of that is bad PR more than the money and the revenue. I think that's where people are getting this completely wrong. Where people are like, oh, the money on the table and everything like that. Like, my argument wasn't as much about the money on the table, as much as it just like exposes the strategic difference between what Sony's doing and what Microsoft's doing. It's you're paying a big dollar amount for this game versus you could just get the subscription and get it for quote unquote free. Like, and that almost exposes it more than not having it on the other platform. But my view is, and I'm surprised that people like are so strong on this, that they're like, you're an idiot if you think this, but maybe I'm an idiot. I genuinely think so. This year, Call of Duty 20 will come out. That's going to be on everything, right? Because the deal won't close by then, blah, blah, blah. I think Call of Duty 21, which will be next calendar year, I think that'll be Xbox exclusive. I don't think it'll be on PlayStation at all. And people are like, I'm shocked that people are like, that's a dumb view. Well, okay, I've got a dumb view. That's what I think. I think that next year's COD will be Xbox only. Like, and I think Warzone will stay. I think everything that's currently on multi-plat will stay where it is. The one question is like, a good example is, and we'll go into the Blizzard one if you want to do that, is Diablo 4 has already been announced for PlayStation, Xbox, for everything pretty much. Will they hold to that? I'm not sure about that. That's an interesting one. Like, that's where, you can get into this dynamic where people go, wait a second, it was promised for PlayStation and now you're reneging on that. You guys are bullies. You're throwing your weight around back to that kind of territory. But I think that is questionable for me. I wouldn't be shocked if Diablo 4... Depends when it's coming out, by the way.
But, that's... Like, I think that is probably far enough into the pipeline. Obviously, same deal with Overwatch. That by the time it hits deal close time mid-next year or whatever it is, like, we probably would be... I don't know if we'd be close to that game coming out, but we'd be in the marketing cycle of that game. So I have a feeling I definitely could, but I definitely think Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 would be coming multi-platform. But when it comes to the other Blizzard stuff, so obviously World of Warcraft is only on PC at the moment, and I don't see that coming to console or anything. But
Well, I mean, can I jump in there? I could see it coming to console.
maybe it's the thing is like there's obviously lots of MMOs on all platforms, but I just think the fact that it hasn't made that jump yet is what kind of keeps me there. Is it, I guess they could do some version of Classic or something and bring it over to console. But
Well, just on that game in particular, I think the thing is you still pay for that game. That's not a free game. Right?
yeah.
Microsoft has the direct experience with Elder Scrolls Online, going from paid to free, and the dynamics and the economics and how that all shaped up and the players and everything like that. And I look at this and I go, once they get that across, we're kind of going into a 1 and a bit years time from now. I can't see World of Warcraft having a big injection of players from now to then. I think that's almost the perfect timing to go, you know what, we're going to reinvigorate World of Warcraft. We're going to bring it to console and we're going to make it free for everyone on Game Pass. Like, that's compelling. And again, it goes back to that flywheel. They don't care that they're losing the monthly World of Warcraft revenue because people will switch from World of Warcraft revenue to Game Pass. And it's just more subs to Game Pass. Like, there's still millions and millions of people playing World of Warcraft. If they could just literally just go, okay, they're all Game Pass subscribers now. They're also advocates for Game Pass as well. They're like, okay, I've jumped on this. I was getting just World of Warcraft. Now I'm getting thousands of games and World of Warcraft. Like, all these things are reinforcing each other, which I don't know. That's the lens that I'm always looking at this kind of stuff with.
How much does World of Warcraft currently actually cost?
I thought it was about $15 a month, Australian.
It is. Wow, that's still,
which is Game Pass. Awesome in Australia. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like Activision Blizzard would never make it free. It doesn't make sense for them. They need that cash, right? And how it's structured and how they're positioned in the market. But Microsoft doesn't. Microsoft needs subscribers. They need that story to get bigger. The more subscribers they have, the better the scale their systems, xCloud, everything. So I don't know. That's my view. I think that game in particular is going to go free to play at the end of 2023. Again, all these things, they're just massive announcements. It's just like a quarter by quarter. When are we going to announce free to play for World of Warcraft? When are we going to, do something cool with Diablo? Like, it's freaking insane what they can do now.
So I guess the last thing I want to ask about the competition here is, I guess, the potential that what's going to happen with Sony on this. Now, we know there's lots of rumors and lots of very credible rumors going around about them potentially launching a new subscription service. That's obviously would have been in the works for a long period of time. I'm just wondering, Sony have obviously been making smaller acquisitions over the course of this year last year, I should say, and everything. Do you think that this leads them further towards a larger acquisition?
No, they don't have the market cap for it. This is, again, like where number one, I genuinely don't think Microsoft sees Sony as a competitor. For sure, Phil Spencer, Xbox would see it as a competitor to a degree, but I do believe, I don't think it's hype and I don't think it's PR, because I can understand the business logic of it. They want eyeballs and they want people engaged in their content. So their competitors are much more in the Netflix, Facebook, TikTok space than they are in the Sony space, honestly. But just going back to the game piece, Sony, that's not the game they're playing. But unfortunately, I think given the level of acquisitions that have now happened, you've got a permanent segment in the market. And this is, we'll get to overall thoughts at the end, but this is why I'm very uncomfortable or very unhappy about this scenario and this situation, because, if you're talking about the business concept of a land grab, Microsoft have literally grabbed half the land and they've gone, well, this is Xbox land now. You can never grab it.
Sorry, this is Xbox land. I don't know if we're titling this episode.
We will. We'll call it Xbox land. But this is Xboxland. That's what we're calling the show. But you know what I'm saying? It's like they've got so much IP, so much like talent, devs that if you want to enjoy all of gaming, you now need to have some Xbox exposure. So I think it'd be foolish if Sony even tried to, I know I've seen some, in my opinion, like weird views on like, oh, they should buy Square or they should they'd only do that as a very defensive position, but I don't think it makes any sense. Square will go, oh, fantastic. Sony, you want to buy us? Xbox, do you want to buy us as well? Let's have a bidding war. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Can I adjust the question then to be, do you think this will push Sony, because I obviously already do this, to even go further into securing exclusivity deals with those kind of publishers?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Like further than they even currently do.
Yeah, I think so.
There's been rumors that about the Final Fantasy series in general. We know, obviously, Remake and 16 is only confirmed currently from a console standpoint for PlayStation 5. Like, do they then look at those series and say, okay, we've got to put our foot down and really nail these for, let's say, long-term, like 6, 7, 8 year kind of, ranges?
Yeah, look, I think that they'll do something like, because it's the enemy of my enemy type of territory with this stuff, I genuinely think they'll go something like, to Take-Two and say with GTA, can we have a 1-year exclusivity and we'll pay you $100 million? Now, like $100 million sounds like, fuck, that's a lot of money. But it's like 1,000th almost of what they've just done to buy Activision Blizzard.
Don't know if I've ever heard the term 1,000th, but it's I like it.
It's crazy, right? It's, it's like phenomenal. And that's why, I do think that they will go down that path, but it won't be, permanent exclusivity. It'd be similar to what they've done with Final Fantasy Final Fantasy 7 Remake, where it's like a continued time exclusive. It all appears like unofficially, no one knows publicly, but that's what it seems unofficially. And I think they'll have to go bigger and just to push back confidence in the kind of mainstream gamer. Like people like us, that's not what they're worried about. They're worried about that punter on the street starting to look and go, actually, like Xbox is a pretty good option. They're more in this, like this is the other thing that Sony's going to struggle with. There are, just because they're selling 2-to-1 to Xbox, ballpark, so 2 PS5s for every 1 Series X or S, that the problem with that is they're producing the consoles almost like kind of at a similar rate. You're going to end up getting more Series X, more Series S in store. So people are going to go, well, fuck, like they're going to have Call of Duty for free. They're going to have this. They're going to have all of this stuff on Xbox. It's going to, to me, get back to the old days where it's 360, where people go, well, 360 versus PS3, there's pros and cons, but it's super viable to get a 360. Whereas I know you're like a massive Xbox gamer, but honestly, the PS4 shits all over the Xbox One, like, and its library just destroys it. Absolutely destroys it. To the general punter. To the general
punter, but it really depends on the kind of games you want to play.
Yeah, but to the general punter. To the general punter.
Look,
it's not even a competition.
But to, like, shits on, I think, is a really...
To the general punter, it does.
Unfortunate way to talk about it, because it really depends how much you like those exclusive games. So.
Yeah, but I'm just saying to the general punter. It's like, it's only the bolted on people in the general public that would stick with like an Xbox One over a PS4, right? Some people are just like, I'm an Xbox gamer, I'm a Sony gamer, I'm not talking about in like niche or anything like that. Whereas, I think with this, even like I'd say this, and this is rambling, but I was like going, fuck, I'll probably have to get a Series X now. That's what I thought after all this today. I was like, these motherfuckers have bought so much shit. I'm just like, fuck, what am I going to do? Like,
you play it on PC. That's
but it's shit. Their fucking PC experience is so shit.
If they improve it,
I don't believe they will. But they need to. They need to, because people are gonna more people are gonna game on PC and go, wait, this is crap compared to Steam.
You've got to give up on the EA games and just install from the Microsoft Store. That's what you want to do.
No, but I want to play the EA games. I want to play the It Takes Two, but it sucks the way it all works. So I don't think Sony retaliate, but it's going to be fascinating when they It seems like they are going to launch their Game Pass competitor, and supposedly it was going to be within the next few weeks. That's the sort of hot rumors out there. So imagine them doing that now. Like, just imagine if they were going to announce it next week. They'd be like, "Fuck you, Microsoft!" Like
they're just gonna. It's going. We know it's not the case, or who knows? Maybe they knew about this a while ago. But we know that this stuff would have been planned a while ago. But in the general public, the general punter, as you said, they're going to be like.
Yes,
they just announced this because Microsoft bought Activision.
Exactly. So they're thinking about that. They're like, how's this going to play? Like, we're going to go, oh, all our cool studios will go, you can play them. But then people are going to go, wait a second, you can do that with PS, Plus. There's already a big collection. Like, how much extra am I getting? So
I wonder, because I don't know from a legal standpoint how much you have to disclose before announcing and stuff, but I wonder if Microsoft had potentially planned this announcement to not happen right now, and kind of also almost not jumped the gun, but went faster because of that. So it'll be an interesting next 2 months, to say the least. But integot, this could all be for nothing if certain powers that be don't allow it to be. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on.
Yeah, I'll dust off my European Union legal degree that I have in
the legal
European
side of this. We're not going to obviously be too detailed, just whether or not we actually think this deal will actually go ahead.
And this is mostly my experience of like working on deals in the European Union, being aware of that, and then also listening to some folk who are experts in this space. But look, I don't think it will qualify any of the threats around monopolies or anything from a Truman Act in the States. So I think it will fly through the States. They're doing this weird thing in America now where, the experience literally with Microsoft and, accusing them of being a monopoly, antitrust and stuff like that, it really burnt the Department of Justice over there in the end. So they've taken a opposite tack now where they're allowing the mergers to happen, and then after the fact, questioning if it's a monopoly. So there's an active investigation into Facebook and a discussion about breaking off WhatsApp and Instagram from Facebook. Like, it's an active thing that's happening at the Department of Justice, which is crazy. It's like it's already happened.
You mean from Meta?
Yeah, well, Meta now. Yeah, it would be. Yeah. But look, so I don't think there'll be any opposition in the US, and one of the indicators you can have of do you think this is all going to happen is that Activision Blizzard, although the shares have been frozen from trading momentarily, they've gone active again, and they're trading around the buy price that Microsoft's going to pay, right? So what that means is if I buy Activision Blizzard, like Microsoft's going to buy it off me for about the same amount, right? That's an indicator of the market saying the odds that they think the transaction will go through. Because if Microsoft falls away, it was trading at a premium, it would go back to being about I think it was trading at the 50s and 60s, $70 mark versus the $95 mark, right? Because it wouldn't
I'll just clarify, integot is not providing financial advice. Yes. Seek independent advice, please.
Yeah, legal and tax advice,
et cetera, et cetera.
I think the only quirk would be the European Union, and that would be I think it'd honestly be Microsoft fucking something up and pissing them off, maybe with other things that they're doing in the European Union. And because look, honestly, the European Union can get more political than anyone and more vindictive. So they might use this as a mechanism to whack Microsoft, for something else they've done, with Azure or Windows or Office or whatever. It's well, okay, you need to get it through us. And they're seriously vindictive in the EU. There's some real crazy shit that's happened over there, especially with antitrust. So, but look, I think you can see the market and what Activision Blizzard's trading at. They're pricing it in as a 98+% chance of happening. So I think from that point of view, it's probably going to happen. The next component of it is if they go and try to buy an EA or a Take-Two, that might be because they've bought the biggest publisher outside of the three console manufacturers. I think they've already got to the point where it's they're almost now demonstrating the monopolistic behavior, and the antitrust behavior, like, and it's an interesting, I wonder if they thought about that internally, if they thought, you know what, if we want to acquire more, maybe, let's buy Square and Sega and stuff like that first, and then go try to buy an EA or an Activision. But you know what, I think ultimately what's happened here is, with all the cultural dramas that Activision Blizzard's had, that this has been an opportunity because their share prices dipped so much to actually go, well, this is probably the best opportunity we'll have to buy one of the biggest publishers. Like, let's get in there. So maybe we can go to that topic, given that it's a nice little segue. In terms of structure, like, what are your thoughts?
So I tried to find it, but there was this chart that Microsoft put out when they acquired Bethesda that showed that Xbox Game Studios and Bethesda were two different pillars underneath the Xbox.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I guess banner, and so my assumption is that this Activision Blizzard will essentially become a third pillar.
So it's not, though. I can correct that straight away, because with the investor call, they really specifically mentioned that Activision Blizzard will report directly to Phil.
But Phil is now heading up all three of those pillars, though. That's what I'm saying, is that will it be, as opposed to them moving stuff underneath the Xbox Game Studios banner, will Activision Blizzard, because it was such a big publisher, bigger than Bethesda, essentially
bigger,
fall as that third pillar where it's not an Xbox Game Studio, it's still Activision Blizzard.
Okay, yeah. I think there's a lot of cachet in that brand, like in terms of, especially Blizzard. I would be surprised if they got rid of it even as a label or a publishing label. But I think, and we'll kind of, touch on the culture next, but like, I think they need to shake it up a bit. You know what I mean? I think it's not like Bethesda, which was well run by all accounts that we know about, and very specific culture and everything like that. I feel like if you're inside of Activision Blizzard, you want to change. You know what I mean? Like, you want it to be shaken up. Whereas with Bethesda, it's more like, we just want more scope. Like, go and do cool stuff and don't worry about money anymore. Effectively, you're in a $2 trillion company, so...
I know this is getting a bit pedantic, but they're so big that in theory you could actually say maybe bundle Activision and King together and maybe even have Activision as one pillar and Blizzard as another pillar. So they've essentially got those four pillars, like the Xbox Game Studios, which I say small studios, none of them are tiny. Well, there's a couple of tiny ones, but like your Obsidian, your Double Fine, and obviously the Coalition, all the 343 and all that stuff. And then you've got those other three, the Bethesda, Activision, and then Blizzard. So it'd be interesting to see if it wouldn't take... They can't talk about that stuff, obviously,
no,
really. So it'd be interesting to see when it hits that. God, I can't believe it's going to be next year, to see how that all lands. But I guess the question that seemingly everyone is talking about outside of Sony is what's happened to good old Bobby Kotick.
Bobby Kotick, I think...
Bobby Kotick, the best... Did Bobby Kotick win our Did Bobby Kotick win our heel of the year, or was that someone else? No, that was Grand Theft Auto, I think, won it.
Yeah, I think I argued for that. But
Bobby and Activision were in the running, though. Definitely not the game industry's favorite person.
No, and I think like we didn't really cover a lot of it. Partly like, we're trying to have fun doing the show, right? We don't want to be like depressed every show. But a horrible situation, obviously. It's completely unacceptable for anyone to be in any workplace and not feel comfortable, right? Fundamentally. And I think I could say that on all of our behalf. And this dude, this is where I get a bit frustrated with people going, oh, this is great, and Phil and all this stuff. I mean, like, they've given this guy the easiest out ever. Because he's going to get, he's got a structure with his contract that basically says he's going to get $300 million. Wait, am I getting those numbers right? I think it's like 300.
It's like close to 300 million.
Yeah, 300 million. Yeah, as an exit. Like, if it's a change of, company and all this. He's going to get hundreds of millions of dollars from this. He owns a shitload of Activision Blizzard shares. Part of the reason why they could never get rid of him, the board, because he himself owns so many shares, like material amount of shares. And he's not going to have to face anything, dude. He's not going to have to face up to the music. No way.
So Microsoft basically, obviously, we said it in the press release, but said, he will, remain as CEO and stuff.
Yes.
But the amount of people like, I know not everyone looks too closely at stuff, and especially when video games, there's a lot of people that just don't pay attention, or maybe are not old enough to probably think things through, but they can't do anything. They can't. It's not like they can go, they made this announcement, let's oust him. Like, they don't own the company yet. They literally can't do anything. And by all accounts, or at least, the reports that we're seeing, however they know this information, I don't know, but, is that it's very likely he will exit once that transition happens.
100%.
So it's just because they made an announcement, they had to make an announcement. What are they going to say? Like, we're going to kick him out, but we don't own the company yet.
Well,
like,
it's illegal.
Ridiculous.
It's illegal for them even to say that. So this is where people don't and understand. Like, they're not in markets, so they just don't know how these things work. But Xbox and Activision Blizzard are both technically publishers. They're both competitors. You can't work together. You can't even align on strategy and those kind of things because it's an anti-competitive behavior. So they absolutely wouldn't be indicating this is what we're doing, this is not what we're doing, but it would be 100% a part of the terms of the settlement and the deal and what they want to do. And honestly, the mere fact that they're paying this in cash, they could have paid this in Microsoft shares, but the fact that they're paying it in cash makes it the cleanest way that you can exit people. Because otherwise, those people become big Microsoft shareholders, right? Mm-hmm. They don't want that. They don't want this guy. They want to see the end of this guy, honestly, right?
I know.
And like the guy, like this is where I get frustrated. This guy is gonna fucking walk away scot-free, basically. Let's be real. Like no way a person like that who's been the CEO, the head honcho for such a long time would even want to report to Phil Spencer or anyone else, right?
Exactly. Like imagine Bobby Kotick. He said Bobby.
You want
Kotick.
his body.
Bobby Kotick. Imagine Bobby Kotick being on like the Microsoft leadership team or the Microsoft gaming leadership. Like, that's not going to happen.
Well, so Phil reports to Satya, so he'd have 2 levels of management above him, right? Like, this is a guy who's literally been the CEO for 25 years, is it, or 30 years? Like, and way he wants to. He would speak. He even mentioned it in the press conference when Satya Nadella became the CEO of Microsoft. He had a call with him, one-on-one call with him on day one, right? Like, that's how big Call of Duty is, that he can call the freaking CEO of bloody Microsoft on day one, right? There's no way that guy's going to report and go, he's my manager once removed. Like, no way, never.
And look, obviously I have very little love for anything that Bobby Kotick has been a part of, but at the same time, from a business standpoint, obviously he's made Activision Blizzard and the people that obviously worked for him into a powerhouse.
Oh, yeah.
So from a business standpoint, obviously he's made a lot of right decisions, but at the same time, he's represents a lot of what's horrible about that kind of, I guess, massive corporation, and especially the stuff recently. I think that's what's put people over the line. Because he's been a hated figure for a long time, but I think at this point that was the way he's handled stuff is inexcusable if all those accounts are to be believed. So
yeah, and it's it's all accusations, but I am a believer, where there's smoke there's fire when you have so many people coming out. But for me, the interesting thing is not just Bobby Kotick, right? Because it's not just like, I know that people like to demonize always like one person, and I am a believer that
he's got a very demonizable face as well.
He does, doesn't he? But I'm a believer that a single figure at the top can really sway a whole culture. So he's certainly not helped the culture, and he's certainly pushed it in a bad direction. But what you get from those situations is a layer of management under him and under them that reinforce it and reflect him, right? So I think the interesting thing now for me and for us to, monitor over the next year and maybe year and a half, depending on when the deal closes, is how many of these people who are running like, Dev Studio 1 in Blizzard, Treyarch, Infinity Ward, etc. How many of the senior leaders in that space are like, I'm going to explore my opportunities elsewhere. It's been a great run, blah, blah, blah. Because they're going to look at it and go, fuck, this is going to be like Judgment Day when we get across to Microsoft. We better get out before, we get over there and then everyone's like, well, that guy's a prick. Like, we've got to get rid of that guy. Because it's like the great reset. It actually gives them an opportunity to go, we've got to get rid of these people. So, yeah, I'm going to monitor the hell out of that. I reckon it's going to be really interesting to see many people leave.
So, talking about pricks.
Oh. Culture.
I think technically the last kind of mini segment we've put together here is obviously talking about. We're not going to go into detail about their last 12 to 18 months or whatever it's been, but there's obviously a huge culture problem at Activision Blizzard, and it's one that they have been trying to fix in some ways and apparently not trying to fix in other ways. There's obviously the biggest thing here is all to do around that, the lawsuit about sexual discrimination and everything around that, sexual misconduct that's been the headlines that we have. I kind of, part of me regrets at least not bringing it up on the show, just because it's a chance to kind of admonish that kind of toxic culture in the games industry. But at the same time, it's a very tricky line to cross, especially one that's still being written, because we know allegations are allegations, right? But they have a huge problem on their hands to fix, and the question is, what role will Microsoft play in that, especially when it comes that handover day? It's that kind of stuff can't be fixed overnight.
No, and I disagree with a lot of people's take in this space around, this is great because this will all get cleaned up before Microsoft closes the deal. I'm like, no, like these things take years, especially when it's a state like California suing a corporate entity. Like, that's not common. They don't do that every day, like in this way, in this particular way, right? It's a real tricky one. Like, I think, and it really frustrates me, but these type of situations politically always allow for outs for everyone, right? Because, ultimately everything does become political. And if you look at California, they want to come away with a win, right? With this, they've sued them, so they need to come away with a win, right? So that's where they're coming from. I know that, like, you'd love to go, oh no, they're trying to do the right thing, all this other kind of stuff. That's not the reality. The reality is, like, whoever's leading the case wants to make a name for themselves, probably run for political office. And then on the other side of the equation, Activision Blizzard's like, fuck, okay, we want to resolve this in the cleanest way possible. But now that there's this acquisition that's happening, what normally happens in this position is everyone just goes, and I've experienced this. I can't talk about where I work, but I've seen these kind of acquisitions or deacquisitions or demergers. And it's like, what happens internally is everyone just says, we're going to get bought in like 6 months' time or a year's time. I'm not doing anything until that's done, right? And I just think they will, figure out ways to just delay. Then it'll get to Microsoft, and Microsoft will just go, how do we do this as quickly, cleanly as possible? Because what they can say is, that's not us. We're good. That was them. That's a different layer of management. We've gotten rid of the guy who's the biggest cause of it. Like, how do we settle California and get on with it? And California will go, oh, this is a win for us. Like, let's just get this done and move on.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will really address the issue. That's the thing that frustrates me.
And with the, and to be clear, like, I put in here, apparently like at least 40 people have left Activision or been removed from Activision Blizzard, like in the time frame this stuff's been happening. But obviously this is a deep-seated kind of culture. And I also have no experience or exposure to Activision Blizzard's internal workings, but it's just clear to anyone. But with just like in the scope of what this buyout was 68.7 billion. Like, they could settle this case so quickly and easily, as you said, from a financial standpoint, because they're like, look, what do we need to do? Let's just as you said, it wasn't us, but here we've settled it.
Yeah,
he's the whatever. I have no idea what settlement terms are in this kind of case, but it's like they obviously have the money to do whatever they need to do, and when you compare it to the amount that they just bought Activision for, it's a drop in the pond. I'm
sure they've already allocated the amount.
Yeah,
like honestly, they'll go like, how much is it worth? Because it's not worth their time. And
Yeah.
as opposed to Activision Blizzard, they have people they're trying to protect. Bobby Kotick, his leadership team, their leadership team as it goes through. But going across to Microsoft, they don't care about that. Like they want the devs, they want the teams broadly. They don't need the leadership team. Like all of those things can be replaced.
They want Call of Duty. They want World of Warcraft, Diablo.
They want the IP and they want the games that are coming. And generally, it's not the senior leaders that are making the games. They're making decisions about directions. But, as we've seen, Phil Spencer's got an army of people from a strategic point of view and delivery and production and marketing and all that kind of stuff. Like, those kind of people are very replaceable. Like, amazingly, the senior leaders, right? So yeah, it's such an easy deal for Microsoft to do, and I think we're on the same page. This will all happen after the acquisition; it won't happen before. But it also goes to this question about the unionization efforts that they're trying to push for. Look, we are very different. Obviously, like we probably come from different sides of the fence on this. I'm not a big fan or interest in like unions in game devs and kind of in general. But I'd imagine you are a little bit more in favor of that. But I feel like in general, and I'll let you speak to that in a sec, but I feel like this whole union push is dead in the water now because of Microsoft.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're just not going to win.
No. It's like... And, like, what hope does it have underneath a Microsoft umbrella? Like...
Zero.
It's nah.
Because the stakes are even bigger for Microsoft not to allow any unions... in Microsoft in general, right? And then also they could just turn around and go, oh, okay, so you don't want to work on the, okay, see, like we'll just take these IP and get other people to work on it. We literally have other studios like to replace you. It's dead in the water. I feel bad for them. Like if they wanted to unionize, because that ain't going to happen now. Like zero chance now. No chance. So I'm not sure what they're supposed to do. It's kind of shit for those people, to be fair, because it's going to be stasis under Activision Blizzard. And then Microsoft are going to be like, look, we're different, even though they're not. Like, as you've got in the notes around Microsoft, right?
Yeah, so Microsoft just last week announced, and this is Microsoft in general, not just the Xbox.
Yeah, corporation.
Announced that they will review the effectiveness of their own sexual harassment and gender discrimination policies and practices, including a review into allegations like historical allegations against senior leaders like Bill Gates as well.
Don't sue us.
So timing... very interesting. No coincidence that people would put two and two together here. Whether or not, like, obviously they would have preferred to have this out before anyway, but whether or not, you could do conspiracy theories around this. But the point is that they are obviously trying to get their own house in check to make sure that no one looks back on them. They, as you said, they are positioned, or at least Xbox, in such a good PR position at the moment that is almost their biggest, it's like reputational risk.
That's true.
They can't have someone looking at them as hypocrites with this.
Yeah, and look, like I know people who work at Microsoft. Like it doesn't seem like outwardly or internally that's the type of culture it is. Whereas it does feel like, by all accounts, and even the public disclosures of some of the senior leaders at Blizzard are like really creepy in my opinion, and like over sexualization of women and like in the games as well and all these kind of things. I'm like again, it's accusations, but for me there is a little bit of an element of where there's smoke there's fire, right? It can't be so many people making up stuff. Like I just find that very hard to believe. And did you want to cover anything else with the culture before we close out with the final thoughts?
No, there's I guess some final opinions around this kind of relate to it, but no, let's get to what we actually really think about this whole thing.
So you're an hour and a half in. let's tell you what we think about this deal. Do you want to open the batting or?
Yeah, so
well, could you and we should give context quickly for people. Like you're the Xbox fanboy. You're like leading the console wars and hating on anyone. You would never have a PlayStation in your house. Whereas I am agnostic.
None of that is true, although I only recently I haven't had a PlayStation for a while and only just recently got a PS5. But I am an Xbox player, that is my primary platform. back when I can't remember exactly what I said, but I'm fairly certain back with the Bethesda acquisition that while I saw benefits, the biggest downside that I saw with that is probably my biggest downside to this as well, which is taking games away from people. You know, making games exclusive from, like, it's one thing to make games internally, especially for a new IP and an IP that's been exclusive or owned by, let's say, Microsoft for a long time, like Gears of War. And it's another to take Elder Scrolls and Fallout and away from fans of, especially on the platform with the biggest install base, PlayStation. That's exactly the biggest downside I see of this, is that I hate the fact that there is potential that Call of Duty will be an exclusive game, or at least, you know, the mainline releases.
Yeah. Call of Duty 21, whatever it is.
The Diablo 4 or 5 or future games or Overwatch or any games in any series that people love, take it away from them just because they, you know, that were multi-platform games. That sucks, man. It absolutely sucks. When I saw this news, I was shocked, but I wasn't like, oh, that's awesome. Like, to me, how do you have that reaction unless you are so, have Xbox shoved up your ass, basically? You are such a fanboy that you delight in people losing things they love.
You know, and I always tease that you're an Xbox fanboy and stuff like that, but you're not. Like, you're an Xbox fan, but not a fanboy. You're a, you know, that's your primary driver of the platform. You have like the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Elden Ring, you're getting on the Xbox. I'm getting on the PS5, right? Like, that's just, people have their preferences. So your preference is Xbox. To be fair to you, as much as I joke around about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, I totally agree with you. I think it's fucking, I never understood the whole console war thing. Like, I remember even back in the day when we were kids, maybe I exhibited it. I don't think I did, but, you know, like a Super Nintendo versus a Mega Drive for us, like a Genesis for the States. Like, I just didn't like that platform. Like, my cousin had one, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's got some games I've never seen before, but it wasn't my thing, right? But I wasn't like, I hope that platform loses all their games and, you know, somehow they steal Sonic away or whatever. Like, it's such a weird, sick, like, psychology to have, right? And yeah, I don't think it's a majority of people, but it is disturbing a bit to me, where people are like going down that path. The one thing I do understand is, you know, because we're both very fortunate, like, we can afford to buy pretty much anything gaming related that we want, right? Not everyone's in that scenario. Right. So I can imagine people going, you know what, I've invested in like the Series X and this is awesome, because what this means is I don't have to go and pay for the next Call of Duty because I've got Game Pass. Like, you know, some people could be just like, that's the only thing they have, Game Pass. And the news for them, it's like, wow, this is cool. Like, these are all going to come day one. Like, I don't have to pay for them. And I can just kind of basically, you know, and not everyone's earning a huge quid. So it's like, okay, that's an amount of money I'm paying and that's what I'm able to get for it. So I do understand those people thinking it's good, but for me, like I said to you guys privately, I go, this is like a dark, dark day for gaming. This is like one of the worst news items that I've seen, because it also, to me, like, if people think this is where Microsoft stops, there is no reason at all they would not, if they could get the right terms, they would not buy out more publishers and more game studios. There's zero reason. If they can do it, they will do it, because it's that flywheel, getting more games, more content, more people subscribing, you know, more money to buy more games. It all reinforces each other. So that, to me, I'm like, the fact that they've got the gall to go and buy the biggest publisher outside of the console manufacturers, I'm like, they basically, it wouldn't shock me at all now if they go and buy Take-Two or they go and buy EA. And I think it would be terrible. I think it would be horrible. And I think this news is horrible, honestly.
Yeah, like, overall, I do not like this news at all. But those positive angles, those little positive things, like, the one thing for me, from a positive standpoint, is, although it hasn't been like this for a while, but there was a period of time where there was uncertainty about Microsoft and Xbox in general as their future and how much they, were dedicated to remaining as at least a console. Obviously, they're always going to be dedicated to PC, and while it's been a while, especially with all the other acquisitions they made, this at least does cement that they are in it for the long haul, or at least as a platform like Game Pass in for the long haul. Who knows about hardware wise?
Yeah.
And as someone that is very invested in that ecosystem, there is a part of that that's like, okay, well, at least, them really planting themselves down with these ludicrous acquisitions means that they are dedicated to Xbox and Microsoft gaming, I guess, as being a thing for very long term. But I don't necessarily agree that this was the right way to do that. There's obviously other ways, internal development and things like that, building your own IPs rather than just buying out stuff that's already moneymakers. But I guess for me, another positive is...
Well, just before you move on, because I just got a point on what you just said. It's so interesting what you said. Like, I reckon if you asked me at the start of 2020, so before we started doing the show, or maybe like day one of doing the show, right? It's like 10 years time, could you see a world where there's only, say, Sony versus Nintendo? And that's how consoles are cut, right? I go, yeah, I totally fucking see that, right? But you are 100% right. I think with what they've done, Bethesda and Activision Blizzard and the investments they've made in this space, to me, I'd be so shocked that in 10 years' time, there wasn't still PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo fight. Like, they're not even fighting against each other, but as a segments of console, like, yeah, that's to me like a 99% chance now, given what they've done here and what they've paid and stuff like that. So, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. The one other positive I see from this is, and it's not just from a culture standpoint, it's also about development philosophy and the business model and their IPs. I do see this as a chance, whether or not it's going to happen is who knows, a chance to heal Activision and Blizzard in the sense that Activision, all their studios, it's just become the Call of Duty. Activision is just Call of Duty, that's all. Like, you just look at what they did with Vicarious Visions and, obviously that's not Call of Duty, but they were making non-Call of Duty games under the Activision label. Toys for Bob.
That's insane.
Yeah. And essentially I think there was a report, you alluded to a report at some point where it said every single studio, maybe not 100%, every single studio in Activision is working on Call of Duty.
Some element, yeah, exactly.
And for someone that has absolutely zero interest in Call of Duty, like, this gives me a bit of hope that those development studios and stuff, there may start to be some creative and new voices come out and potential new titles, because Activision's put out games before that I do like.
Yeah.
And so I see that as a chance to heal that potentially, who knows, from that regard, that as you raised a great point before, that under Microsoft, not every game has to be a $10 million, $15 million seller, whatever, right? That we may see some of that IP come back, and I would love a Double Fine Space Quest game,
Yeah, that would be like, I've now willed this into your mind where you're like, holy shit, they've got costume quests. Maybe that's their allusion to it, but
and just the last thing I'll say on that, because I guess you might have some thoughts, but is that on the Blizzard side, Blizzard is no longer the Blizzard that people loved. Just look at their failures in a lot of ways.
I think though that there is the heart there still, I would argue, versus a BioWare or a Rare. I think that they're different, but go on.
I'm not saying it's gone completely, but just look, World of Warcraft.
Agree.
Warcraft 3 remastered, and I'm sure it's a great game. But Diablo Immortal, all the missteps, or at least PR missteps they've made. This is, I could see as part of this, Blizzard at some point can also heal, but who knows? So that's to me almost the biggest benefit I see out of this. But overall, I'm not a fan of this acquisition.
Because when did they get bought out? Acquisition by Vivendi merger with Activision. Okay, that was 2008. 2008.
Yeah. So I listed before they so that's why it's a merger. It's not who
Yeah,
knows,
but like
obviously.
when one party's so much larger than the other, it's merger. A couple of things on what you said, like really really interesting points. I do believe that they still have a lot of the old school people at Blizzard. Like they're still stuck around. They love their IP so much, and although all the shit that Activision's done to Blizzard to a degree, and they're not like unscathed by the way, but I do feel like Activision's put a lot of pressure for Blizzard to change. I feel like at least there's still people there. So I agree with your overall point that this could be a bit of a pressure valve release for both sides of the fence, where Blizzard's like, okay, we don't need to worry about like what's the monetization practices that we need to embed into Diablo 4, because this is one thing that does change the equation with Game Pass. It's not about necessarily how much more monetization they could do per person. The metrics I'm sure that they look at a lot is how many people are playing. Like, how many hours are they playing per month Game Pass? And they, like, genuinely would want that number to be as large as possible. Like, that's where they see things are winning. And I think you can even see when Phil is kind of talking off the cuff, Phil Spencer, he often throws things out there, because they would see these metrics all the time, but he will throw things out there just talking about, like, what we find is that people are playing twice as many games, right? So they obviously are caring about this, and it makes a lot of sense. It's the same as Netflix. Netflix, they look at, they don't want people off their platform. They want it on their platform. Same as YouTube, right? Like, it's all about attention and getting people on your platform so you don't leave it. And I think that that's where, games like Diablo 4, although it's already going to be so baked in by then, but, I guess in the world where it's not coming out and they can have more of an influence of it, it's really just like, how do you just make a game more in the ilk of Diablo 1 and 2 rather than 3? And I'm not saying 3 is a bad game, but they don't need as much of the monetization crap, the store and all this other shit that they kind of put into Diablo 3, and even some of the crap they've done with Diablo 2, where it's like got DRM that you have to check in every 30 days. Like stuff like that, Microsoft's not going to care about that stuff as much, right? And going to the Activision stuff, like, I think you're right. I think this is quite an interesting case where I'm sure there are a lot of devs. I actually listened to the guy, I can't remember the guy's name, unfortunately, but the bloke who runs Raven. And, like, they're going all the way back in the day to, like, Hexen and stuff like that, right? They're still the same people for the most part. And they're like, oh, we've got our ideas of, like, what we want to do. But when you have Call of Duty there, pretty hard to say, like, I don't want to be working on that. And to me, it's like, it was an interesting comment from him on this podcast. It's like a podcast probably only like 1,000 people listen to, but to me, it was like, I understand his answer. He's the head of that studio. He's not going to be saying, fuck, I don't want to work on Call of Duty again, but I do get it. And it's like, at the same time, I'm sure, and the kind of reading between the lines that I had was a bit like, you can't say no to it, but you'd want to be able to say no to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that, pressure from Microsoft won't be there as much. Look what they've done with Halo Infinite. They could, like, if it was Activision, they would have pushed it out and made it happen last year. But Microsoft was like, you got to take a year, like, to delay this game or thereabouts and release it properly. I think, you'll see a change in the cycle with Call of Duty. I don't think you'll see it necessarily every single year in November, almost at the same date in November every year. I just don't see that. I would see it more like what Ubisoft's doing with, like, Assassin's Creed recently, where it's like not every year, but it may be every other year, or it could be like back to back, but it's not like that crazy manic every single year you have to have it. And that's where, some of these studios like Toys for Bob, maybe they're looking at it and going, fucking thank God, because now we can go and make a, like, I'd imagine they're already thinking about it. Like, hey, we could pitch a Conkers game, right? Or we could pitch a Banjo-Kazooie game. How sick would that be?
Get them to do a remake of Jet Force Gemini, damn it.
Yeah, but, and this is where I find it, like, overall, going back to my overall thoughts as a negative thing, like, I totally see it going, cool, let's make Crash 5, right? And we're not going to have to worry about the monetization as much. And, let's just really make a game we're all proud of, and it's gonna be an Xbox exclusive. And I just think it feels dirty, right? Like Crash 5 Xbox exclusive. It's the same order of like when Rare went to Xbox, and I'm like, it's just wrong. It's just not right. Like, same as if Square went to Xbox. I just personally think it's not right. Like, it's, I don't know, it just kind of pisses me off actually. And my final thought is just, I don't understand why people have faith that Microsoft can get this right. Like, they had their biggest tentpole game, Halo Infinite. It's printed on the box of the Series X, right? Like, literally embedded on the box. And they fucked the release of that so hard, they had to delay it by a year. And it's still, like, major components of that game still aren't out. Like, I want to play co-op in that game, right? I can't do it. Like, why do people have faith that they're getting even more studios that they'll be able to execute and get these games out, like, in a timely manner at a proper degree of quality? Like, there's nothing to me that says that they're good at doing that.
So degree quality 100%, but to me timely manner, like, I don't care how long the game takes.
Yeah, but
myself.
I get what you're saying.
If I was part of the business, I would care. But as a gamer, I don't. But what in terms of quality, yes. Like, the Halo should not ship without a co-op mode. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, it shipped as I think I called it, but as a multiplayer only game, then a multiplayer plus single player game, and then eventually Forge mode.
The weird asterisks of, oh, it's a beta.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, exactly. Total BS, right? Look,
Yeah.
like, the timeliness matters because they're still a business ultimately, right? And they need to be feeding the Game Pass beast, right? With good content coming through. They've had to pay for that content. They've had to pay to go, hey, IO Interactive, we want the Hitman trilogy. Let's get that onto our platform, right? Like, they don't want to have to be doing that going forward. So that's where I'm saying, like, the timeliness is a big factor for them, because it's gonna be inextricably linked to the quality. Because otherwise they're gonna start pushing the studios to, hey, you're in this quarter, you have to get the game out that quarter, and that's gonna affect the quality. And like I said, like, there's nothing to me that indicates that Microsoft's good at this. Like, they have very high quality games, like Forza Horizon. Like, I do think ultimately Halo Infinite, like, these are great games. Like, A-class games, but fuck, how many games are they making? Like, of course, some of them are going to be A-class games. Like, it's almost, it would be more shocking if they couldn't. So, yeah, look, it's a wait and see kind of thing. But yeah, like, I'm more fascinated almost like in 2024, 2025, what's their yearly production? Like, what does that look like? I'm going to be super interested. But, like, look, I'm very unhappy with it. But as I said, I think I'm going to end up getting a Series X now, which is kind of crazy to me. So I guess they win. You win, Phil. You win.
Phil, I do love Phil. He's in terms of all the gaming executives, it's got nothing to do with me being, the fan of the Xbox platform. There's very few people in the games industry that I look at and go, they look like they can be trusted. As much as they're businessmen behind the scenes, at least they don't look like they're lying through their teeth. So
you don't like Doug Bowser, who gets up there and basically does a marketing ad for Metroid Dread and doesn't really even mention the studio, who supposedly were there? Like, what? I just heard about that after the fact, that Mercury Steam reps were actually there and they didn't accept the award. I'm like, whoa, that's harsh.
I miss Reggie as much as Reggie had his date.
I think Reggie was the best out of everyone. Reggie was the best.
Maybe Satoru Iwata.
Yeah, but I think the Japanese factor. Like, I agree. I think how could you argue with a guy who literally made games? Like, of course he's going to be the best. But yeah, if we spoke Japanese, he'd be the best by a country mile. But like, we'd probably missed out on a lot of things he did. But anyway, getting back to this is Xboxland.
What a big week. That's all I'm going to say. I think
midweek,
I always say this week maybe not so
negative.
big. I think this is it's not, and it's a 68 points episode 68.7. biggest big week in gaming yet, I think.
Yeah, look, we probably should do this, Swinny, because we love this kind of shit, but we should do, like, not objectively, but our version of what are the 10 biggest stories in gaming history, right? And just gut feel, I feel like off the top of my head, this is probably number 2, which is kind of crazy to say. Well, maybe not. I think Xbox coming into gaming is bigger than this as an announcement. Don't know, I have to think about that. But it's right up there. It'd be like top 5, I feel like, gut feel straight away. But yeah, crazy news. Like, literally did not think it was real, and it is real. It's scary that it's real. So, and it look like I think we're both looking forward to what they're going to do next year when we're going to be doing the show in its like 4th year or something by then, or.
I look forward to all the news articles for every single game when it happens. Oh, it's exclusive. Oh, it's exclusive.
No,
oh, it's exclusive.
That won't be as interesting as Call of Duty 2023. Like, what is that going to be?
Yeah.
Like, if they can close the deal early enough before the marketing cycle, like, that's going to be fascinating. Like, that's to me is the biggest story next year. Like, what's going to happen to that game?
Guess what? Double Fine's making it.
Double Fine's making.
They're like it's like a symbiote. They've absorbed Activision, and Activision's taking over, so they're getting all the other studios to make Call of Duty now.
I know. Yeah, exactly. It just takes over the whole organism in every studio. 343's making Call of Duty now. id's making Call of Duty. Actually, id's take on Call of Duty would be pretty sick. That would be interesting. Hey, that's an interesting podcast. We go, id makes Call of Duty, and like Treyarch makes Quake or something like that. It's kind of crazy, right?
Raven Software makes Wolfenstein. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Maybe going back to their earlier days.
But yeah, look, like that's going to be a big story. Yeah, more will come from this. But unfortunately, just like with the Bethesda deal, you know, it kind of went quiet for a long period of time until it closed. And then when it closed, they had that, you know, session where it's like, oh, when I said about, you know, it's going to be on the same platform, blah, blah, blah. Actually, what I meant was, you know, new stuff is going to be only on Xbox.
I'm looking forward to the roundtable with Bobby Kotick. I'm sure that's going to happen.
But that's the thing, right? Who are they going to put in that roundtable? A lot of these people have got a lot of accusations.
They'll probably put the studio heads that are more... that still have a reputation by that point.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Or maybe they'll try to bring some people back and try to reform
Mike Mordheim or whoever come back to Blizzard.
Yeah. Anyway, like huge news, like insane news. Biggest news story, really, that we've done since starting the podcast. Right up there. Like, I think personally, Bethesda was bigger for me personally. But objectively, this is like, a dollar amount. It dwarfs it, right? So, all right. Well, next week... Well, not next week, this Sunday. We don't know if Mike's back. We don't know if he's lived or died by then.
We don't know if Mike will be well enough to do the show.
He's still quite sick, yeah.
If he is well enough, we've got a couple of features that he is an important part of. If not, we don't know. I've been playing some Kingdom of Amalur Fatesworn, so I'll probably give my impression regardless of that. That expansion's pretty sizable. Much bigger than I expected. So
that's what she said.
All right, that's how you know it's gone too late.
Well, yeah, like, and from my perspective, I still feel like this is Mike's effort. This is the length he's willing to go to. I haven't seen any, you know, I don't want to go too far into the details of his sickness, but I haven't seen any proof of him being sick, have I? And he just does not want to complete Donkey Kong Country 2. He just can't do it. He's just not he's got to get good.
Look, it hasn't stopped him before not completing a game and coming on the show, so...
That's true. And, you know, there's a few stories that we want to chat about, but I kind of want Mike to be there, so... Yeah, we'll just have to work through it.
We'll see. I'm
also trying to see the schedule, because, like, are there any other games that are coming out? I mean, we're starting to run into times where games are actually getting released.
Man, RP Golf Legends, come on. Comes out tomorrow.
Well, actually, I'm really kind of keen to check out some of these new games that are coming out on Game Pass. So, speaking of which,
don't remind me.
Yeah, your little deal is like a disaster now.
Play 3 goddamn Hitman games now. Fucking hell. Because I'm treating them separate. I'm not completing. I'm not going to be like, it's the Hitman trilogy as a single game. No, it's Hitman 1, 2, and 3. God damn it!
Well, and you can run them all on the Hitman 3 engine. So that's kind of like doesn't. I feel like you could just play one, and that'd be fine because they're all on the same engine.
We'll see
anyway, crazy show, long show. Thank God we did this, but it was important to talk about. I think so. Bye bye.
See ya.